Today we talk about our own RPG.
Frank. Oh my God, he's dead.
Charles, no, I'm not dead. I'm just getting over being sick. Come on, my guy. We talked about this.
For a second there, I thought your target had been acquired.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the dad jokes have been acquired at this place. Welcome to What is Tabletop, where I, Frank, am a GM of 10 years, and with me is Charles, the master of all puns.
Master of all puns, and then some.
Yeah, I'm the dungeon master. He's a...
Pungent master?
That was horrible.
Yes, it was.
Sometimes we script things that was not scripted.
Yeah, I'm bad.
But today we're going to be talking about our own RPG that we made. Yes, we made it. We together.
Yes, I had everything to do with this RPG.
No, we did make it because, like, even though I came up with the concept, like, we did bounce some things off, and you,
for sure, yeah.
And you and the play group helped me figure some stuff out, which was very beneficial. So we definitely came up with it. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we do, you guys should like, comment, and subscribe. Do all those things. But if you really want to make sure you see our videos, you should join our Discord where we talk about our videos and all other kinds of stuff. We already got a community growing there. It's pretty cool. We already got some like fun things happening. I think someone's making like a Digimon ripoff RPG in our Discord, so that's cool. You should be a part of it.
And on top of that, we also have launched a Patreon. You should check that out. That's also, we'll have that link in our description. We have multiple tiers, so yeah, you should check that out.
And then more importantly, if you're wanting the quick start guide to this RPG, you can get it over on our Patreon. It's going to be available for free to anyone, but there are some paid tiers if you want some additional stuff, and you can check them out there. So what are we talking about, Charles?
We are talking about our recently created TTRPG called Target Acquired.
So we're just going to go over what it is, kind of like go through a little bit of the design process from like my end of like how I came up with some of the mechanics and stuff like that, where inspirations came from. And so maybe that inspires you a little bit at home too. So that could be fun. Yeah. So what's your first question, Charles?
What is Target Acquired? Like, what is it about?
Basically, you're an assassin that's going to have a specific target that you need to assassinate, and you need to get in, kill him, get out, hopefully without being noticed. But ideally, you just don't want to get caught. Like, even if you fail the assassination, you just don't want to get caught. So this came from the idea of a movie called The Killer. Have you seen The Killer?
I have not. You mentioned it to me before. It is on my to-watch list.
So it stars Michael Fassbender, and it's by David Lynch, I think. Yes.
That sounds right.
Sure. I always get the Lynch and then the Finch, and then all the Davids confused.
That's fair.
Basically, Michael Fassbender plays a assassin, and for the first, 20, 30 minutes of the movie, is just him getting ready to make the assassination attempt. And I was like, this is phenomenal. Like, I've just loved watching it. You don't get a lot of talking from him, but you see his process. You see oh, he's going to drop a gun in this trash can. So then that way, if he needs it later, he's going to be able to use it. And then he's going to scope out the place. He's going to notice these are how the blinds move and do all these really cool things.
So it's kind of like a murder heist.
Kind of he is doing a lot of effort that we don't see assassins typically do.
Okay. In
in regards to, planning and executing their assassination. We mostly see something oh, they get really close to this one individual, or
You're right.
small snippets, but not grand schemes of that. And so the entire time I'm thinking this could be a really interesting RPG. Oh, and if you think about it, when he's setting this up, he's getting a getaway vehicle. That could be a resource you have. What if that's a die you roll? And then this is where my brain starts going of what if you got a pool of dice that you yourself build based off of how good you are at preparing. And so that's where the main idea of this came from. And then some other mechanics that got fleshed out by the Hitman series of video games. Have you played any of those?
I have.
Yeah, they're super fun, and you can always have some wacky shenanigans. And so to me, I'm that's RPGs in a nutshell, man. You can never plan for your players doing anything normal. They always have to do some weird things dressed up as a clown, right? And so stealing some ideas from there allows me to then also, keep it more lighthearted so it's not super serious, but still keep the idea of the game.
So how heavy are the rules with this?
Honestly, this is probably more on the rules light system. There's not really a lot at the moment. It's possible we'll flesh some more out as time goes on. These are just the quick start rules we have for now. We do have some ideas of character, exploration and stuff like getting it bigger and better characters. But for now, we have some small things if you want to do a longer campaign with the same assassins. But at the same time, this is more of a like one-shot system. Like
Yeah.
you get in, you do your thing, and get out, just like the Hitman video games.
Your quick start guide, is that going to be like a 1-pager, 2-pager? How long do you think that's?
Oh no, it's like several pages.
Okay, cool.
It's not a one-page RPG, unfortunately.
Yeah.
There's a little too many rules, and you have to explain kind of like each of the phases a little bit. But the idea is that there's really like 3 phases, and what you do in those phases is more broad than like having specific actions that tell you can do this or you can't do this.
How many players do you think would be optimal for this game?
Yeah, so you can play this with as little as 1 GM and 1 player. You can play this with as many players as you want. I think with as many players as you want, it's going to get a little hectic. So I'd probably, mileage may vary. It's up to you on how many people you want to do. Though, once you introduce more players than 1, you might want to start introducing additional objectives. Again, the Hitman series kind of does that too, where like sometimes you'll just assassinate somebody. Sometimes you have to assassinate 2 people. Sometimes you have to assassinate someone and then steal an important item at the same time.
Or sabotage. Yeah, doing Hitman-y type stuff.
Right. So that's just some ideas. And again, those are also explained a little bit in the packet that we have as well. But that's something you want to keep in mind from a game balance perspective. And this came from playtesting because we had our friend Jeffrey and Evan playing, and Jeffrey was getting ready to take the shot. Evan's on the grounds in like costume, and he's like, "Why am I here if Jeffrey's taking the shot?" I'm like, "That's a good point. We should have something for you to have to do rather than just be like, oh, we just need one guy to go in there." Now, granted, you could also treat it that way, where there's one assassin and the rest of you are the team. Like one of you's the gadgets guy, one of you's the the getaway driver.
Yeah.
You could do that as well, but if you're all wanting to be the assassins to some extent, adding additional objectives does help.
Absolutely. And I can also imagine having it set up in the sense of where, like you said, you have multiple targets, so you need to have different resources. It could be at different locations. And have it at different times where certain things need to happen in a certain sequential order in order for it to make sense.
Yeah.
Especially, even making it look like an accident.
Yeah, and you can even do things like having multiple assassinations need to happen simultaneously for one reason or another. There's going to be a lot of different ways you can do that. And that's, again, where the flexibility of the rules come in, is the fact that because it's just saying, here's what you need, you can then add on additional things if you wish to as the GM.
So you mentioned a dice pool. So what does that look like, in Target Acquired?
Yeah. So basically what's going to happen is as the game starts in the first phase, your players are going to be describing how they're preparing for it.
Right.
So what will happen is you'll start with the mission briefing, which is basically just, here's your target, here's the location it's happening, get it done. So the GM is explaining these things to the players.
Okay.
And they are like, cool, we know that we have this target's name and they're at like a villa in Italy or at a racetrack or yada yada. Literally just steal anything from Hitman. No one's going to care.
Very interesting. Okay.
But basically, once they are told this is what's going to happen, it's all theirs, how they want to go about it. So someone could be like, well, can I get blueprints for the mansion that we're about to go into? It's like, sure, roll a d6. The difficulty is going to be a 4 because while it's not uncommon to find like the blueprints for, normal public housing, his are a little bit harder to find. And so you roll, and if you roll a 4 or higher on the d6, you can then take that d6 and add it to your assassination pool, right? Okay. So you don't have any dice in your pool to begin with. You have to start building them up. And the only way to build them up is by doing things that add to that pool.
Okay.
So you describe like, oh, hey, I want to see, does he have an allergy to something? Because maybe we can poison him with an allergy. Or maybe, does he have an enemy that we can utilize, right? Mm-hmm. These are things that you can start using, and then you can start adding the die roll to. Now, let's say you do something really well, like you roll a 6. You can then give additional benefits if you want. So there's things called benefits, which are like just small little sheets of paper that allow the players to burn it for a +1. That's, yeah. And that's a really nice thing. So it's like, okay, we have this blueprints. I want to know if there's a secret entrance. It's like, well, it's going to be hard to find a secret entrance. It's going to be at least a 6. Okay, can I use the blueprints to help me find a secret entrance? Okay, now it's no longer a difficulty of 6. It's now a difficulty of 5.
Okay.
Right? And then on top of that, your assassins are also going to have skills that they can write in. This is very similar to any rules-like game where you come up with like a phrase. Something like Eyes of an Eagle is what Jeffrey came up with, which you can utilize in a lot of different ways for sure. or the I know a guy. You could do things like man of many masks. You know, just having these phrases that you can utilize for various things to where you can then add a +1 to a roll as well. You obviously don't want to be too broad where it can be utilized for everything, but you also don't want it to be too specific where you can barely use it. So that's just something to keep in mind there. But ultimately, you're just collecting this dice, and then what's going to happen is too, during the mission briefing, you are given one last bit of information: how difficult it is to assassinate the target. And this is a scale of, I believe, 10 to 30. 10 is relatively easy, and 30 is very difficult. And so the way this works is, when it comes time to make the assassination attempt, you must choose from your assassination pool how many of those dice you want to contribute to the assassination attempt. And if, regardless if you succeed or fail, those dice are used. So again, you're in the first half of the game, you're adding dice to your pool. During the second half of the game, whatever dice you have is what you're using. And as you use them, they disappear and your resources start to dwindle, and it's hopefully you have enough resources to make the assassination attempt and get out before you get caught. And so that's the main crux of the game.
Okay. So is it mostly a D6 type system? Are you mostly focusing on just D6?
Yeah, we're just using D6s, just because it's one, easy for a lot of people to have, right? If you just buy like a set of 12 D6s, that's honestly all you're ever going to need. And that just makes it easier on anyone picking this up. You'll just need like that, and then maybe some cue cards to be able to write like character information and like your benefits on. We just really wanted to make this game like super easy for anyone to pick up, not a lot of resources that are needed to put into the game in order to use it.
So let's talk about the different phases and how that works out in Target Acquired.
Yeah, so we'll walk through like a sample session really quick. So again, let's say I'm the what's called the broker. That's the GM. I will then give Charles the assassin a mission to have to go out with. So let's say it's a lavish party being thrown at some secluded island, and you have to assassinate the head chef, right, at this party. But there's a lot of valuable people there. So not only do you have to assassinate the head chef, but you have to be careful not to kill anyone else of importance, because you don't know who would then want to go after you. And then obviously don't get caught. So you know the location's a secluded island. You have the head chef is your target. And then I would say the difficulty is probably going to be like a 20, because there's a lot of high value targets there. So it's a little bit more difficult, but not so difficult to where it's like near impossible. So now with that in mind, you if you understand your math, you could probably start thinking like, okay, if I need to roll, if a D6 is an average of 3.5, right? How many D6s on average do I need to roll in order to get 20? About 7, like a little, like 6 to 7 roughly. And it's like, okay, cool. Knowing that, I need at least 6 dice to roll for that assassination attempt. Now I need probably a few more dice on top of that to escape. And so that's something to think about as you go on. So now we move into the preparation phase. Okay. And that's when you're saying, oh, okay, I want to do this or this or this or this. And to stop people from just constantly doing things to add dice into the pool, you are given a limit of days. Okay. So it's like you have 14 days before you must make the assassination attempt, because that's when the party is, and something's going to go down that's going to make it impossible for him to be assassinated. Okay. Right? You have 14, or maybe the contract's up by that 14th day, whatever reason you need. But you have 14 days in order to complete this assignment. Right. And then you have 3 checks you can make per day. Okay. So let's say go ahead and like say, what would something your character would want to do real quick?
Maybe my target's routines.
Yeah. So like finding out, like, is there a schedule or something? Yeah. You would roll a D6 obviously. And then we would say, oh, it's not too difficult. Maybe it might be difficult because if you're not on the guest list, you won't know what the schedule is. So we'll say it's a 4 or higher. And then maybe you have a skill that's appropriate. You can add that. You roll, boom, you get a success. You add it to the pool. Right. And then we just keep going further and further with that. But that was one of your tasks. Now, let's say your second task, you're like, oh, now that I know his routines, can I get into his employment? And you roll for it and you fail. That doesn't automatically mean it's out of the way. But depending on the severity of the roll,
you have to pivot.
You might have to pivot. Some consequences might happen, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean you're out of it. You might get a second chance to roll. However, if you fail too many times, then you not only will you be locked out of using whatever thing or resource you were trying to use before, but now the difficulty is going to go up because now they're starting to get suspicious. Like, why was this guy really wanting to get in? Something's up. And so now I, as the broker, would tell you, hey, the difficulty was raised from 20 to 21. Now it's a little bit more difficult to kill him because they're a little more on edge. Right. And so that's the preparation stage, is just constantly going through that.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I also give some tips on like, hey, if someone rolls a 6, maybe you give both the die as a success and a benefit, like a little slip for something. If you roll a 1, it's an automatic failure, no matter how many pluses you have. So again, you can be nice about ones. Like maybe just a failure is you don't get the roll. Maybe a failure is like, hey, they're on to you. Like it's up to GM interpretation and what's happening there.
You know, if you're in the middle of, you know, maybe lining up a shot and then you roll a 1, okay, clearly you've been found out. You got to book it now at this point. So yeah.
Yeah. So basically this continues on until one of two things happens. Either the time runs out and you are forced to go through with the assassination, even if you don't have the amount of dice you want. It's like, man, I wanted 8. I wanted like 10 dice. I have 8. It's like, well, it sucks to suck. You got to make the assassination attempt right now. It's like, okay. Or you can say, we have enough dice. Let's get it early. And depending again on the GM, you could decrease the difficulty, right? So in this situation, if you're like, hey, I got 4 days left instead of the full 14, I've used 10. I'm happy with the amount of dice I have. Maybe instead I try the assassination now when there's less value targets. And I'd be like, okay, there's less high value targets. The difficulty is going to drop by, let's say 2 points for every, like 1 point for every 2 days. Boom. Now you're instead of at a 21, you're at a 17.
I enjoy the idea of the difficulty being adjusted based on, oh, you could do the assassination sooner versus later.
Yeah. And
have these perks of like, oh, the advantage by doing it earlier makes difficulty go down, which would make sense.
Well, and another thing in the preparation phase is if the players are choosing to, they can like say use an entire day's worth of tasks to automatically succeed on something. And I even give like examples of like, you could get a benefit, you could get a temporary skill, right? So like in our playtest, Evan was like, can I learn how to fly a helicopter if I spend a day on it? And I'm like, yeah, it makes sense that an assassin would only need a day to learn how to fly a helicopter. Like they probably have the knowledge in there and they just need to relearn it. So I gave him the temporary skill of helicopter pilot. So that way they could use the helicopter that happened to be there to fly away. And here's the really nice thing about having it be rules light is because it's rules light, you don't need to have these hard things. You don't need to have the entire layout of the mansion or of the island or whatever. You can just state things as they come up. And so maybe your players are like, is there a submarine nearby? And you're like, you know what? That's fun. I like that. I wasn't thinking about that, but you asked about it. Let's roll the die. And if you get high enough, there is a submarine. And if you don't, there isn't one, right? Like you can do things like that too, which make it a little bit more fun. You can even like lock benefits, which is what I did with the helicopter in the one shot that we ran, where I was like, you have the helicopter, but you need the keys to unlock the helicopter to use it as a resource. So that's just some additional things you can do. But yeah, feel free to like play around with it a little bit. Like use the days as a resource as much as the dice and the benefits are as well.
All right, so that's the preparation phase. What is the next phase?
Oh, the next phase is the phase. It's the assassination phase. It's probably the shortest phase in the entire game.
Okay.
But it's probably the most crucial. Now, the assassination phase isn't just making the shot. It's everything that leads up to making the shot. So it's quite possible you will be using dice before you've even taken the shot, right? This is when you've decided this is the day we're making the shot, everyone now has to start getting into position. And so maybe you have a chef's outfit. And so getting into position is a lot easier. Like you just literally show up and start going to work. And now, boom, you're in work. And you just wait for your opportunity for the chef to come by. And now you're like, okay, now I can start making rolls. Can I convince the chef to come with me alone to this storage? It's like, all right, that's going to be a little difficult. Roll a die. Here's the difficulty of 5. You can choose, do I roll 1 die and hopefully get it? Do I roll multiple dice and guarantee it more, but now I have less dice to roll later? You can also, at this point in the stage, burn benefits as an automatic success depending on what the task is. You can't burn a benefit to like automatically succeed on the assassination, obviously. Yeah. But if it's like, can I get him alone? It's like, well, okay, let's roll for it. Hey, no. I have planted raw flat like raw meat in the fridge. Like I knew it was going to go bad. I planted this so that way I could automatically say, "Sir, the meat's raw. Can you come check it out with me?" as an automatic success. That's something you can do if the assassins have been preparing long enough. But obviously, the assassination phase can only last so long before you have to make the attempt to kill. And regardless of your means of killing, the second you try to kill someone, that's when you make the roll. It can be obviously with like a gun or like a strangle or like anything like that. But even something like poison or like an allergy, something that's non-consequential, like even if it's like, oh, he trips and falls, these are things that you have to still roll for in order for the assassination attempt to even be successful. And you still have to hit the difficulty. The difficulty's been told to you the entire time, like it was 20, then became 21, now it's 17, now it's back up to 19, whatever have you. You choose how many dice are you going to roll. In a multiplayer game, one person rolls, and that's it. You're all sharing a dice pool in this multiplayer game, but one person rolls. And so you got to be like, who's the one taking the bait? And what was funny is in our one shot, Jeffrey's like, all right, I'm going to roll. I got 3. I'm like, yeah, that's what you need. And he rolled like, I think like a 9. That was including
he was one shy.
Yeah. That was including his +1 skill and a benefit that he could burn to give it a +1. And he just missed. And so we described it as your bullet hits the guy, but you don't realize he isn't dead. You're like, yeah, he got knocked out. Obviously he's dead. It's like, nope, you just grazed his shoulder and he's unconscious. And you guys are too busy booking it to look no otherwise. So that could be a means of like, you just, it seemed like you succeeded, but you didn't. It could be as simple as what happens in the actual movie, spoiler alert for The Killer, where you just flat out kill someone else. And you're like, oh, well, too bad. I got to leave. You can have a lot of reasons for why it fails. Obviously, it's successful. And again, the means in which you're killing someone might determine how people respond. If it's a gun, people are going to know that someone got shot. But if it's like I strangle him in the freezer and no one's hearing it, and then I put his body away, it's like, well, maybe no one's going after you immediately and might be a little easier to get out before you realize it. So, yeah, that's the assassination phase.
So is there another phase after that?
There's one last phase, the escape phase. And it's as stated, you got to escape. So it's continuation of the assassination phase. You're still using the dice pool that you've built up and the benefits that you pulled up, but you just need to get out. Mm-hmm. And so, again, treat this kind of like Hitman does, where it's like you have multiple exit points. Don't be like, oh, you're down the highway, but they're following you. It's like, no. Let them, like, once they get off the map, let them leave. Like, they got away, right?
Right.
And so, like, my players had the helicopter. And it's like one of them got in the helicopter and they flew away. And it's like, sure, no one else had a helicopter that they could go after you. Why not? Sure.
Yeah.
That works. Yeah, don't try to make this too adversarial. Like, it is still like a fun game where we're like just trying to tell a story together. But that would be my advice in that.
You mentioned this being more of a one-shot type thing. Is there any way to kind of expand upon this and maybe make it a little longer? Maybe not a, like full, like you would do with a D&D campaign, but maybe multiple sessions?
Yeah, so you could. Again, like we said, we have character advancement rules. So again, when you make your characters, you're writing 2 phrases as your skills. And that's sticking with the assassin. Like, you're just thinking of like what kind of an assassin you are. Like, maybe I'm more of a John Wick, up close and personal. I use guns really well, but I also like can use karate. Maybe you're more of like the subtle poisoner who like, sneaks into the background, hides their face really well, is never noticed. But as you are successful in your assassinations and escape, I do have kind of a pseudo point system of like reputation points that is kind of like XP, where like if you complete a successful assassination, you get so many points. And if you do additional objectives on top of that, you get points for those too. And then you can spend those points to either gain a benefit for the next mission. You can either get a permanent skill upgrade. Yeah, just stuff like that. So those are options in there for sure. Obviously, this is why like it's not going to be a long-term thing. Like there's only so much you can do, right? It's kind of like other skill-based games where like you can keep improving your skills, but there comes a point where it's like, okay, I've improved my skills enough. I've seen what the game can do.
Right.
That's why I would say this is more of a one-shot system where like trying different assassins could be a lot more fun. If an assassin gets caught, that assassin's gone. You can't play them anymore. Like just permanent, no full stop. It's like, yeah, they got it caught, and you better hope that doesn't ruin your chances on the next mission now that they're looking out for you.
So being captured and or dying, that just ends that assassin's career at that point.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you, again, feel free to modify this however you want. You could have rules like that. I mean, just like how people can die in D&D and then the characters come back 2 minutes later. Like, you can always obviously do that if you want.
So I think an interesting concept would be after a failed assassination attempt, upping the difficulty and having them redo the, in a new location, but now security's heightened and now you have to do more things. And yeah, I think that'd be really cool to do.
Yeah, the guy has constant security around them at this point.
He's got bodyguards.
They're checking all the mountains.
Yeah.
So now it's even tougher. That could be a very interesting thing to do for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was thinking, I was like, could you imagine, like with the one shot with Jeffrey and Evan, where Jeffrey hits them but doesn't realize it, and then when he finds out later, oh, we still have a contract we need to fulfill. Like they're not, because technically they didn't fulfill the contract, so they would have to go back, or face the consequences from the broker.
Right. So I basically at the end I said, here's what happens. So they had to both kill this guy who came up with this cure for a disease and also steal the cure for the disease, because all these other companies were like, we don't like that this guy is coming up with this cure and we don't have access to it. So we need the cure itself and him to die so he doesn't replicate it. And they got the cure, but they didn't kill him. So I cut to a news segment of him where he's like, it's okay, I got assassinated and they stole my research, but I will push through and I will make another one and it'll be better. And you could just see Jeffrey and Evan be like, dang it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's some fun in that too. Like of immediate irony of like, yep, and you guys failed. But I think having the target number known ahead of time is great. And like telling them like, hey, it went up.
Yeah. I like the idea that it fluctuates, because it makes it more high stakes.
Right. And it's one of those things. It's like the Jenga tower in Dread where it's like, it makes it like the tension rise without you having to say like, and there's additional guards. It's like, no. Because it increased by 1, you can assume there's an additional guard presence because it got more difficult, right? And you can flavor it however you want. The +1 just means like, actually, you're going to have to get frisked now when you go to the party. Or maybe it's this or this or that. There's a lot of fun things that you can do. And I'm sure like different play groups are going to come up with different strategies for different ways to do it. And that's really the cool thing about it. Ultimately, like I said, go check it out on Patreon. It's quick start rules are there. We will flesh out more. We'll maybe add some more mechanics as things go on. But when we inevitably have those rules ready, it is only going to be available to our patrons, those who are paying patrons. So make sure if you want to be a part of that, you join us on Patreon and you pay for that. And it'll be fun because I'm going to have like some scenarios in there that you can use for your own games. We'll have some probably deeper advancement rules, maybe add a little bit more to the character creation. But this is just what like we came up with just from like the fleshing it out over the last few weeks / months. And this is what we came with. And I think we're really enjoying it. Also, shout out to Zarek for the template. Thank you, Zarek, because otherwise I would not have been able to do that.
Zarek.
Also, we had a one shot and we had a lot of fun doing it. So go check it out. We're going to plug it a little bit more just because we really want you guys to see it. It's a lot of fun. We know it's a longer video than you're used to seeing from us, but we think it's worth the time. We actually got to really explore the Avatar system really well. And there's some cool stuff to come out of that.
Yeah, we had some artwork done for it too. It was really amazing looking artwork. Thank you, Dubious Artiste. We appreciate the work you did. And guys, check it out. Again, it's a lot of fun. We want to keep doing these kind of videos, and hopefully you're enjoying them as much as we are playing them. So
absolutely. And until next time, stay witty.
If you have to.
Was I successful? Yes. Aw.
You'll never know.